third cycle that we are going to look at is the nitrogen cycle. We have already looked at the water cycle. Water supplies us with hydrogen and oxygen. The carbon cycle. And now, the fourth element in human and all organism biology that's really important is nitrogen. Nitrogen, as we'll see in a little bit, in a couple days, is used to make the organic compound protein. And we're going to talk about protein. We'll come back to this later, but we're going to talk about protein in great gory detail. So, we'll talk about it more later. So let's talk about how nitrogen cycles. Because remember, in a chemical reaction, matter is neither created nor destroyed. So all of the nitrogen on Earth, all the nitrogen in the universe, has always been there. Nitrogen exists in the atmosphere as N2, in the air. Nitrogen makes up about 79% of air. About 79% of air. The problem is that nitrogen in the air cannot be used as it is. We cannot, when we breathe in air, we breathe in nitrogen and we breathe out nitrogen. We don't really use it that way. So if you have something that is unusable and you change it to being used, you do what's called fix it, or a process called nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation, or the fixing of nitrogen, is done by organisms called bacteria. Single-celled organisms that live in the soil or on special plants. There are special plants, those special plants are called legumes, that have on their roots nodules filled with bacteria. Those bacteria fix nitrogen. And when they do that, these legumes include beans, soybeans, things like that, peanuts. Legumes then produce very high nitrogen things, like beans, peanuts, etc. That nitrogen is then passed on to an animal. We'll use, because I can't draw anything else, it's going to be a really long-legged deer. The deer eats the legume and gets nitrogen that way, or a person eats the legume and gets nitrogen that way. There's another way to fix nitrogen. This is lightning. Lightning also fixes nitrogen. So sometimes after a lightning storm, the grass and the trees and everything looks really green. That's because they've really gotten a fix of nitrogen. The lightning, the electricity zipping through the air has fixed the nitrogen, turned it into a form that organisms can use. And just by the way, for those of you that are really chemically minded, it turns them into things called nitrates, nitrites. NO3 and NO2 are compounds, two of the compounds that they get turned into. So these beans and peanuts and other legumes are full of nitrogen. They get eaten by an animal. The animal releases a lot of nitrogen in its waste. So nitrogen will go into the ground from its waste. And in the soil are bacteria. Those bacteria, other kinds of bacteria, that take the nitrogen waste and do a process called denitrification. And denitrification involves taking nitrates and nitrites and things like that and putting them back into the atmosphere. You could have a dead deer, and as it decomposes, it's dead. And as it's decomposed, bacteria denitrify it. Okay? So there are two terms here to know, three terms. Fixation of nitrogen. Highlight those in blue now. Bacteria fix nitrogen. The fixing organisms are called legumes. And term denitrification, which is performed by other kinds of bacteria that live in the soil. Now there's an important idea in all this, something that we do, and maybe many of you know about this, and I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about it, and that is the idea of crop rotation. If you check out fields around your house, you'll notice that for a few years, field, I'm trying to think of how I can show this. Looking from above, here's field year 1, corn. Year 2, same field, grows corn. Year 3, same field, grows corn. And then all of a sudden, year 4, farmer will have soybeans, for example, growing in it. Now, why will they do that? Well, because remember, soybeans are a legume. They fix nitrogen. And a long time ago, back in the day, we're talking a few hundred years ago, people that when we started doing monoculture, one crop per field, we noticed that over the years, the production from that field, there would be less and less corn. The first year there'd be a lot of corn, second year maybe a pretty good amount of corn, and then it would start declining unless you rotated your crops, and every 3 or 4 years you plant soybeans in that field. Soybeans naturally put nitrogen into the soil. Nitrogen is the main component of fertilizers, and so now you have naturally fertilized your field. So when you see that out in these fields out by us, out back, by the back drive out of school, a few years there will be corn in your high school career, then 1 year there will be soybeans in it. That's an important idea. It deals directly with the nitrogen cycle. The idea that we rotate our crops in fields. So there is the last biogeochemical cycle, nitrogen cycle.